And that's really, that can be a really hard pill for people to swallow. Because, but you're right. You're totally right. Because if you think about it, we in a Western society, our retirement age is 63. That's the age that is recommended for someone to retire. But I know I work with a lot of individuals where they're way past 63. They're in their 70s and they're still working. I worked with one lady and she was in her 90s actually, and she was just like, I'm just moving along. And I'm not here to throw anyone's laundry out on why they didn't retire, or maybe they were finding that purpose that they wanted. Maybe it was the stock market crash of 2008. Maybe they're trying to rebuild. I don't know. But what I do know is, let's just use that model of retiring at 63. If someone's like, oh, I lived until 74, I'm good. That's only 11 years of enjoying your retirement, if you really think about it. Because if they're like, well, I lived for 74, it's time to go, that's not cool. Like, make your life worth living, make it count, and give meaning and give purpose and create memories, and use as much of your life adequately to experience everything needed. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, absolutely. I mean, to me, I don't want to ever retire. I don't think anybody should feel like they have to retire or they've failed in life if they don't retire at 63.
Totally.
I know there's financial reasons why many of us will have to work a lot longer, but to me, it's more about productivity and being useful and having something to do every day. I can't imagine getting up in the morning and like, okay, what am I going to do today? Well, let's see what's on TV. Or, okay, I'll take a walk around the neighborhood. That took 40 minutes. Now what do I do? I want to be productive and I want to be active and all those types of things. So people are going to make different choices. If you really love to travel and all that, and hopefully you're financially prepared that you can, retire at 63 or younger and get out there and do stuff, and spend that money that you've worked hard to earn. But the key to, just living well is to be able to live well and with vitality at whatever you choose to do in your growing years.
So Dr. Armstrong, we hear a lot about extending lifespans, but you stress health span and even meaning span. So what's the difference and why does it even matter?
Well, I think, when we look at lifespan really hasn't dramatically changed in the human species. I mean, we can live to a certain age and that's pretty normal, but health span relates to how healthy or how well we are living those years. And so there's really efforts to, we talk about, lifespan or longevity. We're not going to do a whole heck of a lot to extend how long people can live, but we can improve how healthy they can be in that period of time, and so pushing up the health span age, so the period of time, that third age before we hit into fourth age, keeping that as long as possible and as close to the lifespan as possible is what we're talking about when we stress health span. I think the meaning span comes to, when we talk about well-centered fitness and the SPIES model, it's having meaning and purpose in all those years as well. Because, okay, we can live healthy, we can live long, but to live without meaning, what's the purpose of the point, right? And so I would probably even emphasize we need to start looking at, rather than lifespan, health span, well span, how well are we living? Are we living that SPIES model to the fullest and getting, closer and closer to that asymptote as we age? And getting better, be our best today, be better tomorrow is one of my mantras. That's what we're really looking at meaning span or well span, and not only living longer, but living with greater purpose or finding that purpose as we age.
So would you say that in order to extend someone's lifespan, focusing on spiritual and social wellness is just as critical as physical health when it comes to aging well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think again, I don't think we're going to change the lifespan, but health is closely tied to the spiritual, physical, intellectual, emotional, and social. You look at, the physical being our genetics, things that we're doing, exercise, diet, and all those. Spiritual brings purpose into the whole equation, and, living for something greater than oneself. The more educated we are, so the intellectual piece, the longer people tend to live and the better health they have throughout their lifespan. And, emotional, I mean, we are in a society where emotional well-being has fallen apart. There's so much anxiety, so much stress, so much fear, all those types of things, so much hatred, so much bitterness. There's so much impacting us emotionally that has a negative toll on our health. And then, of course, we've talked about the role of social connection in wealth span and health span and so on. So all of that is connected. And so I don't think you can separate the well-centered fitness from health span and lifespan.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that. We're kind of in a mental health crisis right now. And I think that statement alone weighs way more heavier on answering the question I asked. And hopefully, yeah, when we first started this podcast, we weren't just, yes, we spoke about the physical exercise and nutrition because that's what we knew about, but it wasn't the main goal. The goal was to also help individuals age mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like even financially at one point, right? And so, man, I'm really glad that you touched on that. You said that aging well is inclusive, not elite. Can you share what that looks like in practice?
Yeah, and I think it's keeping it simple, and trying to give access to everybody. It's very easy for us to say, okay, you want to age well, you got to exercise, you got to eat right, you got to maintain a healthy body composition, not smoke, get good sleep hygiene, and have good social connections or purposeful social connections. Now go do it. And expect people to be able to do it. And without the proper tools, the education, without the proper environment, it's impossible. And so we have, we've talked about not having the front porch. We're constructing houses. We're putting people in conditions where it's just harder and harder to socially connect and interact. We make it harder to engage in exercise. People maybe can't afford a gym. There's not as much outdoor space to be able to move around, to go walking, walk the dogs in safe neighborhoods and those types of things. Food access. I mean, you want to talk about how badly we have affected people's nutrition. I mean, grocery stores push the crappiest of foods. There's more and more fast food restaurants growing, fewer healthy restaurants, fewer grocery stores, people having to buy food at convenience stores. You have, when we look at food assistance programs, they don't make it easy for people to get healthy food and don't even make it possible for people to fully understand what is healthy food. And so there's just so many factors that are keeping people from being able to age well. And then we have, these billionaire biohackers telling us, that they're going to live forever because they're spending millions of dollars. That's elitism. You're basically looking at, okay, what are the things that are going to allow the most elite of us to be able to live well? And the rest of you are just going to have to suffer through because you didn't make the right financial decisions to be able to age well.
So you're basically summarizing it that aging well is affordable.
It can be, yes. And, it just needs to be accessible. And we have to provide access to people. And I think that's what separates the Aging Well podcast from other podcasts is that we're trying to promote what can you do? What are the baby steps that you can take today to live a healthier, more vital life tomorrow? And it's not anything that's that difficult. And I'm not going to sit on this podcast and promote, tons and tons. And there may very well be supplements or treatments that we can do that can extend the lifespan, but that's not accessible to the majority of people. So what can we do to better the lives of all people across the globe so that they can live healthier, longer, and more productive lives?
Yeah. Give an example.